Good afternoon, everybody. We're going to start this work session. The very first item on our agenda is the 2015 Hagerstown Ice and Sports Complex Annual Report. So I'm going to invite our city engineer and representatives from the user groups to come up. What's your HIASCA? Is that, what do you call yourselves?
The Hagerstown Ice Amateur Athletic Association, HIAAA.
HIAAA. There we go.
Does that work?
That works. You know, in government, we need acronyms for everything.
It's kind of like
HIAAA.
HIAAA.
I like it.
Got to be careful of acronyms with ice in them these days.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Well, just as a way of introduction, good afternoon, everybody. As part of the user agreement that the Hagerstown Ice and Amateur Athletic Association, HIAAA, has with the city as they run the board that runs the ice rink, part of that agreement with us is that they have to come back in once a year and give a report on the year past and talk about some of the things they wanted to do going forward. So Paul Sweeney, many of you know him, is here. He's the board chair. Chris Montana is the rink manager, the staff person there, main staff person there. So I'm going to turn it over to Paul, and he has a PowerPoint to walk through and show you a lot of the good work that they're doing.
Yeah, then plenty of time for questions afterwards. So, this again, what we did is we modeled it. If you remember, we were here a year ago, and I gave you a presentation. So this slide pretty much tells you who uses the Hagerstown Ice and Sports Complex. We have a lot of user groups. We have the Hagerstown Adult Hockey League. We have the Hagerstown Bulldogs, which is the Hagerstown Youth Hockey Association. HESA is the Hagerstown Edge Skating Academy. We have the high school team called the Washington County North Stars. The Hagerstown Adult Recreational League is a new league that's really growing at a pretty good pace. We have a women's team called the Mayhem. We have an adult novice, which is a program for beginner adult skaters, and we're just starting, actually this month, a youth recreational league, and this is designed for younger skaters to learn how to play hockey games. And the rink is managed by the Hagerstown Ice Amateur Athletic Association. And what is the HIAA? We're a nonprofit 501c3 organization. We are a consortium made up of all the major user groups. Each group has a voting member on the HIAAA board. We also have 3 at-large members. The at-large members we chose many times for their expertise. We have a CPA who gives us very, very good advice there. We have a gentleman who is a Washington Capitals season ticket holder, which kind of gives us a really nice in with a professional hockey team close by. And then we have Dave Barr, who is a member of Ellsworth Electric, who's given us a lot of expertise on some of the upgrades we're doing at the rink currently. We were created in 2014, and we formally took over on April 1st. So this is actually just completing our first fiscal year. I wanted to give you a slide just to show you how we were able to increase some revenue. This is just giving you a chart showing you the increase we had in public skate revenue. In fiscal year 2013-14, we had $64,000 of income just coming from public skate. We were able to bump that up to $92,000. Surprisingly, it's not a whole lot more participation. The numbers that we had coming in are very similar, but what we did is we did a little kind of tweaking. We used to charge $6 for public skate. We now charge $5, but then $2 for skate rental. And for whatever reason, that bumped up the revenue almost 50%. So it was a good decision on our part, I think. These are some of the adult hockey teams that use the rink. I know if you drove by the rink any afternoon, you'd see an empty parking lot with maybe 2 or 3 cars in it, which is our staff maintaining and keeping the rink up. But if you go by any evening, especially on the weekends, the place is packed. We have 6 teams currently in our HAHL, which is the upper level adult hockey league. We have 8 teams in our rec league. We have 2 developmental teams in our what we call our novice program. We have an all-female travel team that uses the ice, and that equates to over 200 hockey players. You wouldn't think that there's that many hockey players in Hagerstown, but we pull not only from Hagerstown, but from the corridor in 81, West Virginia. Actually, the goalie on our team, Chris, is from Winchester, Virginia, so we pull a lot from other areas. The youth leagues, we have the Hagerstown Youth Hockey Association, which is a travel hockey team. They currently have 6 teams. They play their games all over the state of Maryland and Virginia as well. The North Stars have 2 teams. They have the varsity team and they have a developmental team. And we're currently working with 3 other programs. There's a pond hockey program, a learn to play hockey program, and a youth rec program, which we're just starting. So that equates to approximately 100 plus kids playing hockey, and we're really working hard to try to get that number up. Figure skaters use the rink. We have the Learn to Skate program. That's primarily kids that just want to learn how to figure skate. And then we have the Figure Skating Club, which is a new program that started. I'm not sure what the total number of members are in that club, but that's for people that progress in skating and get to the point where they want to maybe think about going to the Olympics, that sort of thing. Okay, now this is an outline of what we did when we decided to manage the rink. We kind of tried to put a lot of different things in place. So I'm just going to, if you bear with me, I'm going to read this. It says a detailed analysis of separate rink functions continue to be examined by the HIAAA board members, registrations, ice usage, concession, advertising, maintenance. That first thing that we showed you about the public skate numbers, that's one of the things we looked at and tried to figure out how we could increase those numbers. We've done the same with the concession stand. Advertising, we have not used the advertising the way it really should be used. So we're increasing, everybody know what a dasher board is? Those are the things around the rink. We're increasing the advertising in those areas. We've kind of reached out. We do some advertising. Anybody been to the movies at Leitersburg? We have a little commercial that runs there that the city was,
Erin put together.
she put it together as a great little piece, but it helps with getting our name out there, because I know a lot of people still to this day don't know that there's an ice rink in Hagerstown. Every month at our board meetings, we meet monthly. We have a lot of recommendations that are made and we try to implement them. SOPs are now in place. Productivity and appearance is much improved. That was very, very important. Standard operating procedures, the facility, I've got to give Chris a lot of credit for that. He's really followed up, and staff looks much more professional now. The rink is very clean. People come and go and they say they have a great experience, and that's what we're looking for. The physical state of the ice and boards, very, very good condition. We're constantly monitoring that, making sure it's staying up to snuff. And in the last year, we purchased a new cooling tower. We haven't installed it at this point. That's something we're going to do when the ice is out, but we're ready to go with that. We have reinstalled and updated the heating grate system underneath the ice. Believe it or not, the ice has to be frozen, but there also has to be a system about 18 inches below that that keeps the ground from freezing. So there's actually a heating system underneath there that we pumped everything out, put new was it glycol that went in that? Yes. New glycol went in that, and we actually reconnected the ice melting system, and you'll see a little bit later in the slides what that did for us. And then we currently have a Freon pump that needs to be replaced, and that's been ordered. We're going to be replacing that, but that's not something that can be made in a week. It takes it was about 3 to 4 months to get it. Yeah. But once that's in, that's going to help. Slide. This is just the current state. All our bills are current. New lockers and showers. We're progressing with that. We're hoping that gets finished sometime this fall. We have a surplus in our rink account. We've done 2 new hires. We hired a dedicated bookkeeper. She's part-time, but she does a great job of putting all these numbers together. That's how I can get you all this information. And we also hired a program director whose job is to help develop and increase our hockey participation. He put together a really nice tournament this summer. He's going to put together a youth hockey tournament, and he's the one that's involved with getting our rec league going. And currently our account's in the black, so it's good. What you want to hear? This is a chart. I want the city to know that we're very much aware that the city pays the utility bills, and we're cognizant of the fact that we want to try to keep those costs down as low as possible. So this is an illustration of what we've done just in the last 12 months. You can see the usage in 2012, 2013, and 2014 averaged about almost 1.5 million gallons of water flowing through that facility. And we were down to about 840,000 in the last fiscal year. So that's a 600,000 gallon reduction, which is pretty significant. It's 41% we brought it down. And take it a step further, the utility bills, we looked at what the city's been paying the last 5 years. Rodney gives us a report every month, and we took those numbers and we compared it. And just in the last year alone, we were able to save about $5,000 in utility costs. Now, we did that by, which you'll see in a couple of slides later on, by putting a couple of things in place to help keep the costs down. But again, I just want everybody to be aware that we're aware that the city's doing that, and we're trying everything we can to keep costs down.
Well, and the more you save on utilities, the more you can put back into the facility and programs.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah. Okay, looking back, if you remember, probably last year we gave you some goals that we had set up for the upcoming year, and one of them was to get our locker rooms finished. We're hoping that's going to happen. We have progressed. We're close to getting it done. That will give us some extra space and allow us to do some things, including having showers put in, which we don't have right now. That will allow us to have a lot more different types of events come to the rink. Like I told you, we upgraded the internal HVAC control systems. We put them in, we put locks on them. That's contributed to the lower cost. We looked at the upgrading our security system. We found that right now that's not something that really needs to be done, so we kept that the same. We have replaced the cooling tower, purchased it, we haven't put it in yet. The cooling tower we have now was found to be okay, although we're not going to stretch it out any longer than it needs to be. Our schools out public skate attendance seems to really climbed up. One of our board members has a connection. I don't know if anybody has any kids or grandkids that go to Washington County schools, but they put out these public calendars. And in the public calendars, and every day that school is out, there's a little ice skate icon on the calendars now. So we're letting all the kids know that the ice rink is open and ready to have kids come. And we have a public skate set up for every single one of those days, so that's nice. We've partnered with Star Community on, I don't know if anybody knows what that is. They have a lot of different programs, including the landscaping program that we use them, and they've kept it beautifully up in front of the rink. We have a little circle in there that looks really nice. We have a contract with them. They're doing a great job. And we've also partnered with ARC. We have a DJ that comes by. Is he doing a couple of public skates now? Is it still just one?
Saturday and Sunday afternoon.
And Saturday and Sunday afternoons, he's jamming with music in there. He's got control of the music that's being played. So has a great job. We've actually hired him as a part-time worker, so he's having a blast doing that. Okay. This is looking ahead for the next couple of years. Again, we're hoping that we actually just finished up something with the architect that's going to allow us to get the locker rooms finished here in the next month or so. We've community partnerships, the Washington County Public Schools, I told you about the flyers. We're offering a City of Hagerstown player discount, Parks and Rec program listing. That's the new program that just came out with. But for police officers, really anybody that's employed by the City of Hagerstown, we're offering a discount for any of the programs that we're involved with. So it really helps police officers. For
Is that
example,
what the City of Hagerstown player discount is?
Yep.
Gotcha.
Yep. We have a couple of police officers that play, and unfortunately they have different scheduled shifts, so they miss a lot of games. So we worked that out to make it more palatable for them. We've recently hired or applied for a grant for sled hockey. I don't know if anybody knows what that is.
Never heard of that.
That's for disabled people, people that maybe don't have the use of their legs. It's actually a sled that they sit in, and they play hockey by taking the sticks that they use to play have little spikes in the end of them. They propel themselves down the ice. The sleds themselves can be very expensive. They can cost over $1,000 a piece. So one of our board members, Pete Lowe, has found a grant that's specifically for that. We've applied to get some money to actually purchase some of those sleds. We actually have one gentleman that lives in the area that comes pretty much every Monday for a public skate and zooming around the ice. But he wants to get an actual league going, because the closest league is in the Washington DC area, and it's a little inconvenient for people to travel that far, so we think we can get enough in this particular area. So that's something we can do probably during the daytime. We have a travel youth tournament that's scheduled to come up in March of 2016. That's for the kids that play in Youth Hockey Association. We have not really had a youth hockey tournament in our rink for many years, and we wanted to get that back up and running again. And then we had our first adult end of summer showdown tournament late August. We had 5 teams that participated in that, and we're looking forward to having another one next year. Those are all new programs.
Great.
And that's it. So any questions anybody has?
What are your public hours and days?
Well, public skate times are Friday evenings from 7 to 9, Saturdays from 3 to 5, and 8 to 10,
Yes.
and Sundays from 2 to 4. Those are public skate times.
Well, I just want to say to you, this is a wonderful report. It's the most positive thing I've heard all day, I believe. I thank you and your
That's not as
group
big a compliment.
for that.
Thank you.
Well, it's okay. I'm glad we can make your day a little brighter here.
Well, I appreciate that too. The rest of these council people know what I'm talking about. But this is a great piece of work.
I agree. I mean, I think some of the data you've shown us, whether it's the number of public skate, now on that graph, the numbers, I'm assuming, are numbers of patrons? Is that what that is?
No, that's actually dollar amounts.
Oh, those are dollar amounts.
That's revenue coming in, yep.
That's public skating year to year.
Yeah, the public skate is going to be very heavy in the winter months. I'd say probably November through probably late February, early March.
Yeah, people don't think, but I saw June had a pretty big bump.
Yeah, well,
What do you attribute that to? Or-
well, we've done a couple little things. The city's been very gracious with a lot of things we've asked them to do, and the back of our building actually faces towards Fairgrounds Park. And there were quite a few trees and limbs kind of sticking up there, and we thought that if we got rid of that and put a nice little sign up saying, Hagerstown Ice and Sports Complex, come on in, it's the coolest place in town, we draw some people. So I don't know if maybe that has something to do with it. There's a lot of people that walk through the park and see that. So we're trying, I don't want to say it's the shotgun approach, but we're trying to identify different areas we think that we can make it more attractive to people so that they know there's, first of all, that there is an ice rink in Hagerstown and that you're welcome to come in. So,
Well, you're
summertime is a good
definitely doing
place.
something right, and I just wanted to remind everybody that you're not scheduled to pay rent until April of 2017, and so you're using a lot of these revenues that you're bringing
Absolutely,
in to make facility improvements
We
to make it
spend
even
an awful
more
lot of money, yeah.
marketable and usable.
Yeah, we're actually budgeting the rent amount that we'd be paying for you right now, we're setting it aside. So, I mean, we're paying for a lot of things, but we're also still setting that money aside every single month. So,
Capital.
we realize that down the road, we're probably gonna need to get a new Zamboni at some point, or an ice resurfacer, a few other things that are gonna probably need to be done. But we spent a lot of money just kind of upgrading the system that keeps the ice frozen. And we don't have ice, we don't have a product to sell. So that's the number one thing that we've got to keep in check. And Chris is our facility manager, and he's been doing a great job.
Well, congratulations, yes. Mr. Munson, then Mr. Brubaker.
Your water usage drop was dramatic. What was the main thing that accounts for that?
Well, before, when the Zamboni, what it basically does is it shaves a very thin layer of ice off and then replaces it with water. So when it shaves a thin layer of ice out, it accumulates in the Zamboni, and we have a tank in the Zamboni that we dump it out. And before, the ice was being dumped in the pit, and the pit wasn't heated. There's a heating system that went through that. It had been heated many years ago, but the system broke down and it was never reconnected. So one of the things that we did was we reconnected that system so that when the ice goes down into there, it actually melts it.
Right.
But the other thing that we did was, before that was repaired, we changed the way the ice was being dumped. Instead of dumping it in the pit, we were dumping it outside. And in the wintertime, we had a couple of times where snow got piled up quite high, we kind of had a heavy winter, but that contributed a lot to it as well. So before that, we were using a lot of water to melt the ice, and that's not being done anymore. So that was a significant savings that we had there.
And to melt the snow in the pit.
To melt the snow in the pit, exactly, yeah.
Is there ongoing conversations about another sheet of ice?
Oh, we would love to have another sheet of ice right now.
Are you talking about it, planning for it?
Yeah, we haven't gotten any official numbers yet, but what our plan is to get everything squared away and get some money saved, and then we want to come to you in a year or whenever it is and say, okay, we're ready. One of the thoughts I have is not only to have like an additional sheet of ice, but if we build something large enough, a lot of the rinks that we go to in other areas make them multi-use facilities, and a lot of them have indoor soccer as well. And I'm aware of a businessman in town that's been looking for a place to actually do something like that in this area. So what I'd love to see happen is if we built a second sheet of ice, not only have enough room for the second sheet of ice, but have enough room to have maybe an indoor soccer field or lacrosse field or something like that that can be utilized at the same time. Because the construction, if we had it all in one unit, we'd be able to save a lot of money that way.
Do you think if you continue on the trajectory you're on with the successes that you've experienced, that that's a feasible thing to do?
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. And I think it would be a moneymaker. A lot of what the gentleman I was talking to that does soccer goes to a place in Frederick called, I think it's called the Sportsplex, and they have memberships where people pay $25 or $30 a month to be a member of that club, and they have different times that they can use it. Lacrosse is becoming a very, very big sport in this area, and an indoor soccer field, I'm sure, could be used as lacrosse as well, and I think it would be very, very.
Have at least one council member who's interested in indoor soccer too.
Not tied to that.
Well, the issue is in the wintertime is when it would be probably want to be used more, but in the winter times when we're using the ice. So by making it a multi-use ice facility, it's not going to really help that. But if we could construct a facility that was large enough to have both, I think that would be a great asset to the community. So,
Great.
I think it would work.
Any other questions or feedback? Yeah, Mr. Brubaker.
Well, my question segues off of Councilman Munson's last question. Does the board anticipate making any funding requests from the city, either operating or capital, in recent times, next few years?
Well, there is a capital improvement fund set up right now that we've used a little bit of. We've accessed it at some of the numbers this year, like for some of the major repairs, the cooling tower, the city contributed 75% of the cost for that. We paid 25%. The new pump that we just ordered is the same scenario. But there's nothing on the horizon I see as a major thing that needs to be done. Chris, is there anything?
No, it wouldn't be an emergency, but no, there's nothing currently on the radar.
So there is a project in our CIP for the
Yeah.
ice rink, and that's what he's referring to,
Right.
that was tapped for those two particular
Right, but I
projects,
was
but nothing
asking
major
about
long-term.
upcoming-
We have some other ideas of some
upcoming.
painting and different things like that, but nothing major.
On the ice sheet, I would say that with the budget we're facing, that if we are the financiers of a second sheet, that it would help if that making money included the debt service on.
Absolutely.
On the building. So often groups, that's forgotten. I'm not saying you are, but that's a big consideration for us.
Well, this is my plan, okay? I know how it's gonna work, but, my plan is that 2 or 3 years from now, we have enough funds that we can come to you and say, listen, this is what we wanna do, and we can contribute to some of it to start with. We're not gonna come to you and say, we want you to eat the entire debt.
Yeah, we can do
with us.
cheaper financing, but then if we have the debt service to build into our budget, it's just financing.
Right.
As opposed to a draw on it.
But what I'm saying is if we can build up enough funds over the next few years and show that pattern that we're capable of doing that, then I'll know that we'll be able to contribute to that cost as well.
Well, I would just say keep up the great work, and please extend our thanks to the members of your board and user groups for contributing to the success.
If anybody hasn't been to the rink lately, or if anybody watching hasn't been to the rink lately, it's so clean when you go out there. They have nice signs up that direct you where to go. I think the experience that people are having there is so much improved, and you just have to thank Paul and Chris and the gang for all that.
One more thing I want to mention is a lot of, I know the city owns the rink, and a lot of the travel programs are involved with kids from all over the area. And the high school team is actually having a tough time getting enough kids that are from Hagerstown or Washington County to play on the team. So we've actually just started some discussions with the Hagerstown YMCA, and we're going to develop, we think, an after-school program that we think is going to help expose, Washington County kids or Hagerstown kids to hockey, that will actually help feed that program and make that even better. So the Y is very excited about it right now. We just started talking, but I think it's going to be a really nice program because during the daytime we have a lot of dead ice time. Chris is actually from the Cumberland area, and the YMCA in Cumberland had the ice rink associated with it for a while, and he's really big on getting the after-school program going too. So I think that's going to be a huge boost to helping with all kinds of numbers. So.
Great. Great. Keep
Has
up the
there
great.
been a thought process as far as putting more signs out? The ones that are the brown signs or the green, they kind of blend into the, and I know when the state had come in here
Yeah,
and said
exactly.
about the new signs.
They'll be part of that program.
Because that's really important. I mean, catching the eyes of those that's coming in either on 40, off of 70, or wherever, knowing that this is what we have. Because that's always been my concern. There's just nothing, you're down so far that you really don't have anything that's shooting up that states, okay, here we are.
Yeah, we're trying.
I know, I mean,
We've
we've been over this and over this, and it's just like, okay, so how do we accomplish it? Yeah.
We have added a few things, like, for example, that on the back of the building. I
Right,
think that a lot of
right.
people walk through there, so people,
Yeah.
I don't know if anybody here's been through there, if you've noticed it,
Yeah.
that was directed on purpose. but-
Yeah. But, it's just to catch more of the ones from Washington County and the ones that are traveling coming through. I wished I had an answer for you, Paul, but I don't. I mean, other than the signage that the state has come up with
Yeah,
now.
things are getting better, though.
Oh, I know they are. I mean, much improved.
That's the plan, so.
Yeah.
Keep up the great work.
Yeah,
Thank you
thank-
very much.
thank you.
Thanks, Chris. And now we will have the Eric Dykey Show. You get the rest of the agenda. First, we'll start with the license agreement for an antenna placement on Verizon.
Certainly. Yeah, this is unusual. I'm rarely even in here. And then to have, multiple items.
That's
But,
right.
yeah, the first item I want to talk about is the Verizon Agreement. They approached us several months ago about installing an antenna. Potomac and Wilson Boulevard. It would be on the northwest corner, which would be across from the CVS Pharmacy. They wanted to install the antenna at a lower location, just of how it works, because I thought it was unusual how low they were going to install it. But they'd like to install it on our traffic signal pole. It's to help disperse their data, and it's also to take some, some data and stuff off a micro tower they have close by. This is the only location they've asked for. They'll pay us initially $5,400 a year. It doesn't interfere with our operations on the pole. They do all the work, they do all the engineering. It seems a pretty cut and dry situation. They may come back and ask for other locations, but for now, this is the one and only. We had our legal team, take a look at it over the agreement. I worked with some other departments that also work with it. This is the first one we've dealt with antennas, but we have City Light has antennas, and the park system, that sort of thing. So it all seems on the up and up, and it seemed a pretty easy decision to make.
Any questions or?
How high, it's on a traditional, I mean, not a traditional, it's on a traffic signal pole.
Correct.
How high above that does it extend?
There were some, I believe there was a drawing attached to that. It's not very,
No, we have a contract and a memo.
yeah, it looks like the pole's approximately 23 feet tall, and the top of it is about 23.6. So it's probably not more than a foot above the pole.
Oh.
No?
You want me- yeah.
So it would be hardly noticeable.
Yeah. Yeah, the antenna's it's gonna look like some sort of either round or square box on top of the pole.
Almost
Yeah.
like what we have out with like wireless those things that we have with the
Right.
wireless.
And they have to run down the pole and run electric, so City Light will be, receiving a little bit of payment for their electricity for it to be minor, but,
Mhm.
and they wanted a long-term agreement. They actually wanted the agreement to be 15 years, but that's why I see it for 5 years, and then because they have so much money tied up into the unit itself, they can't just put it up and 2 years later take it down.
Right.
Or us ask them to take it down.
Right.
So, but basically, we're going to generate a little bit of revenue for doing virtually nothing.
Sounds like a good idea to me.
And there's a,
Seems like a no-brainer, doesn't it?
Yeah.
and there's an increase each year.
Yeah, I think it's 2%, if I understand, if I remember correctly. It's 2% each year, so it's still not a whole lot, but again, it's some additional revenue. It was totally unexpected.
But our citizens will get better service, right?
At least in that
South
area,
end?
yes.
The south
At least in
end.
that area, yes.
Our
Yeah.
South
And they
End
could come and ask
will
for
get better
more,
service.
That's correct.
if this is
Yeah.
a successful endeavor for them.
Yeah.
Okay. Any objections? All right, so we'll put this on for our regular meeting next Tuesday.
Okay.
On to the next one.
Fuel sales, community rescue service. We had an agreement with them for the last 5 years. It actually expired. We've been working on this for the last couple of months, actually, to put this new agreement in place. But it's pretty much the same as we had before. It's a 5-year agreement. We just continue to sell diesel, fuel, and gasoline to community rescue service. We sell it at the cost that we receive it at, plus 9.5% for administrative duties and running equipment and maintenance and that sort of thing. They're in agreement with this. They continue to want to buy fuel from us, from the city. It's again, another just an extension of a contract we had before.
Any questions or comments? Any objections? All right, we'll get this on for next week as well.
All right.
So I have just one quick question.
Yeah.
Even with the 9.5% administrative fee, this is cheaper than if they just went to Sheets and filled up there or something?
Yeah,
Is
and the
that
main
how that
reason
works?
is that there are no exemptions for excise tax for Maryland, for the state of Maryland. We pay those taxes on the diesel, fuel, and gasoline. But we are exempt from the federal excise tax on diesel, fuel, and gasoline. So that's where the big savings is
I
at.
see.
We've
And all
been-
that's legal?
Yes, it's funny you mention that.
I
Because-
am concerned about that, and we wanted to make sure that it would not interfere with our tax exemptions, so we did a lot of
Correct, that's
research
absolutely
on that.
correct.
Yes.
So that's what took part of this time. We thoroughly researched it. There are clearly IRS rules in place that we had to be sure that we are reasonably sure we're okay on this.
Yes.
So we feel that this is that we're okay on this and that we can continue to sell it to our volunteer fire companies. There's a couple that we do, not too much fuel to them. I think Antietam Fire and Pioneer Hook and Ladder, and the majority of it goes to CRS. We sell approximately, in fiscal year 15, we sold about $67,000 worth of fuel to them. So the year before was about almost 80, but I think the real difference there is probably the price of fuel. It's continued
Right.
to drop over the last couple of years. I think they still use as much or
Same,
more,
right.
just the prices
And we
change.
do the 9.5% on.
Yeah, we gather the data every month, we invoice them like any other vendor, they're always good to pay.
All right. We'll get that on for next week then.
All right.
The next item is salt utilization.
Okay, this is a new agreement with the state of Maryland, and what this really has to do with is if we get in a bind over winter weather and there's an emergency and we need to purchase salt from the state of Maryland. And we would get it from the Sharpsburg office or shop that they have here. We could not, I found out we could not purchase, last year we got some and we had to go through Washington County because they had this agreement in place. I was unaware that, and this is, I'll say fairly a new thing, you have to have an agreement in place with the state of Maryland if you wish to purchase from them. So really, this is just an agreement that says, yep, they're willing to sell and we're willing to purchase it from them. So I've been here about 16 years. Last year was the first time we ever went to the state to purchase salt. So I don't foresee doing this. This shouldn't be a normal operational thing. This is only, there's no salt available, we have no other options but the state. But it's good to have a backup
It's a
plan
backup.
for that. Now, there's two agreements in here, if you read through it. There's a 2-year agreement, which is the actual salt utilization agreement, and then there's a supplemental agreement. I can't explain this any other way than to say this. They asked how much they thought we'd buy per year. I gave them a number of $50,000. So the one agreement's for $100,000, which is $50,000 for 2 years. The annual agreement says $62,000. I asked why the difference. I couldn't really make heads or tails of their logic. What's more important is that we have an agreement in place.
Agreement in place, not to exceed, but we're not
Yeah.
gonna, right.
And I asked them, I said, what if we exceed the amount? And they said they would just issue a change order. But again, last year we bought 30 tons and it cost us about $3,000, $3,500. So to reach these type of numbers, we would have to just continually be overbuying salt from them, and I don't foresee that. We, just as a side note on this, we always purchase salt from, or off of State of Maryland contract. So the state for years would send out a bid, and they would include on their bid Washington County, City of Hagerstown, Baltimore, and whatever. I mean, there was a whole listing. Last year, we didn't appear on that bid. They pretty much eliminated everybody off that bid. Procedural on their part, they felt they couldn't enforce it if we entered a contract with whomever the salt came through, so they pretty much just took everybody off. We were fortunate last year that we were able to, their low bidder was Morton Salt. We and Washington County convinced them to sell to us. So to try to avoid that situation again this year, Washington County is actually bidding the salt out for themselves and for us. That bid is actually due tomorrow, and I'll bring that back, or hopefully bring it back in November for a successful bidder. So it looks like from here on out, we're pretty much gonna be on our own, and that's what a lot of places have found out. So,
And so this agreement is just another sort of a backup?
to back up another avenue, hopefully we find a vendor, because this is pretty expensive too, because they're putting their administrative fees and stuff on top of it too.
Sure.
But this is an up-to contract, right?
Yes, yeah, in dollar amounts, not tonnage.
Up to.
Right, correct,
That's right.
yeah. And it was, I think it's 123 plus their fee, so it's gonna be over $130 a ton. 3-4 years ago, we were paying about $64 a ton. Last year, we paid $84 a ton. I don't want to spend $131 a ton. We're just gonna use a lot less salt. Or we have to find some other way to manage this cost, because they'll just get out of hand in a hurry. Right?
Any other
Good.
questions?
That's good for the environment, too.
I think
Yeah,
the quote we got was 160 a ton.
really. Last year was a mess. The state was not clear on what their intent was, and we really didn't find out till the last minute. I actually had to call Morton Salt multiple times to convince them to sell to us.
Yeah.
And we actually got a great price. We got a better price than the state did. I don't think we're gonna be that lucky again this year. Hopefully, we can find a vendor that's willing to sell to us at a reasonable price and make it work. But I talked to Allegheny County and Cumberland, and they were in the same boat. They
Yeah,
were
we haven't
scrambling
found
to
any
find.
reasonable price.
Yeah, I remember I think we talked last year about that, right? It was the same thing. So with fuel prices coming down, hopefully we can get a better price. But last year was such a harsh winter for north of us, for sure.
Yeah.
It got to the end, there just wasn't salt to be had. In fact, I think the state was July or August before they actually had all the refills done. I think we got our last load in April or May. So we have about 800 tons on hand right now. We can probably go through 4 or 5 storms without an issue. So,
Well, I know you don't like to hear it, but I love a good snow day.
yeah, I know.
I love a good snow day.
Keeps me busy.
Any other, it's not good for the budget, but it sure is
Yeah, that's
fun to play in
Yeah,
and look
yeah.
at.
And then we seemed like last year, we seemed to get snows on weekends and holidays, which just increases labor
Right.
costs.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So.
Yeah, and it's always better on a school day anyway.
If it snows on Wednesday between 7 and 3, I'm good with it. Other than that,
So any other questions or feedback on the salt agreement? We'll put this on, I think this is on for next week as
Yes.
well.
All right.
And last but not least, did you have anything more on that?
No.
Okay, go ahead with the
No, the
holiday
holiday
parking.
parking. This is similar to what we've done the last number of years. I've modified it a little bit. All I'm asking for is that we change it for that we just don't charge after 4 o'clock. We've kind of done in the past with Dex's, just give 2 hours of free parking, but honestly, it makes it confusing for the people paying. It makes it confusing for our staff because they're used to paying a certain amount and kind of understand that, and then all of a sudden it's just changed. So what we'd like to do is just, for pretty much the last part of November and December, just eliminate the $2 after hours and Saturday. And then we can just kind of advertise and put that out there.
Do we still know what the usage is? If we're not charging, do we have any idea? If gates are open, how many vehicles are going in and out?
Yeah,
Because
we
I'm
can
interested in
still,
comparisons between the free parking periods and the.
yeah. Yeah, I think we could still do a count on that. Putting the gates up and down all the time does create some issues, but I'll check on that. But I'm
Well,
pretty
if there's
certain
a
we
way
can
to
still.
do it,
Yeah.
I'm not saying create a hassle.
Yeah,
I'm just saying if there's a way to measure it.
I think there is.
Whether you have an infrared or something.
it's a loop system in the concrete that does the same thing,
Then it would be useful to know
yeah.
what that is compared to the regular times.
Yeah, I understand. And during the holidays also, there are special programs and
Oh, I
dinners stuff
understand.
downtown.
You have to
so we
eliminate
account for that
variables.
sometimes.
Yeah.
You can go back, if you have a daily usage, you can say,
Right.
you can pick out days that might be more
Yeah,
comparable.
and if you notice in the weekly report, we pull the occupancy, where I show you as the peak occupancy.
Right.
Typically, I think the A&E deck is probably running, I'll say 60 to 65% on average. And that's a peak hour during that week. Unless there's an event or a wind down or something like that, then it'll spike. The university deck is probably running 50 to 60%. And we actually have both decks oversold on passes. Both of those decks, the A&E deck has 185 spaces. I think I'd have to look at the last report, we have 200 plus passes sold there. A lot of those are to award beauty school. They're using it periodically. That's why we know we can oversell that deck. University deck's pretty much the same way, 440 spaces, and I think there's 430 some passes sold. A lot of those are to university students. So they come in the evening when the deck is hardly being used, it doesn't really affect our occupancy during the day.
Right.
Even with that, we're still only hitting 50 or 60%. So we're watching those occupancies to see when we're selling too much or, we're pushing the limits on that sort of thing.
Just want to make it clear, there's lots of parking in downtown,
Lots of
Center
parking.
City, Hagerstown, there always
Free
has
after
been.
5 o'clock.
There is now, and
That's
and,
right.
if you like a surface lot or street parking, there's plenty of that, and there's 50 to 60%, 40 to 50% of the parking garages.
That's correct.
Yes.
Very good. So everybody's in agreement with that as well. Very nice.
Great.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Eric.
Eric. Come back again.
Yeah.
We just
We'll
wanted to
see
get
you
them all
next
done
year.
at one time.
City administrators' comments.
Nothing additional tonight. Thank you.
All right. We'll have council comments. Start with Mr. Brubaker.
Last Thursday, the State Secretary of Transportation was in town, Pete Rom. We had a good turnout of people from the community to discuss highway priorities, or transportation priorities, really. And there were not only presentations, but I think we had a good dialogue about I-81, HURs, and things that are of concern to us. And I think he tried to respond to some of that. No new guarantees, no new commitments, but I hope he left understanding our priorities a lot better than he did before he came. And then the neighborhood's first picnic was very enjoyable that same night, last Thursday as well.
Thank you very much. Ms. Nye.
Penny was at the other picnic table.
That's right.
And he's always at the other picnic table. Just that the Hoedown was this weekend, and again, it was just another wonderful event. I guess probably there was over 2,500 that was there.
It was
I didn't get to see you and the kids.
very big crowd.
That's the thing, I know, and normally I always would see, but I didn't get to see you. My big concern is, that came out in the paper as the Hoedown being moved to the city park, and there has to be a discussion on that.
I agree.
Okay.
That was news to me.
Yes, I 14 years and really getting it put in place, and then all of a sudden this came out, and it was like I was bombarded with people, and I said, no.
No,
All
I
right,
don't-
yeah.
I agree. I don't think. it's
I
a
was
good
very
idea.
much hyper city. Ask Valerie. I told her before, I said, boy, I can really go off on a, okay?
You were hyper what?
But,
Oh,
hyper
you were
city.
in Hyper City.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
okay, that was me. But this is an event that very much needs to say where it's at.
Well, and the other thing too is we're saying we want more events, so why would we try to combine
Exactly.
two different events that
and-
are seemingly both
Well,
successful?
and then the whole downside to it too was doing it on the same day as what the Williamsport harvest whatever would be. That's what they planned on putting it, which would not be good. We always kept it away from anybody else that was doing these venues. I mean, the only thing that I can see at Fairgrounds is for it to even expand more with the time frame.
I mean, it's
Because
huge.
there
There were thousands of people
well,
there
there was
at the very
actually
start.
events that were going on
The
that I
community
don't
yard
believe
sale.
that no one knew about it. Well, the yard sale's always a good one. I mean, I've always pushed for that, to please have it more than what you do, you know? If a Neighborhoods First group has to man the area up there, then so be it. It's bringing the people in. But at the ice hockey rink, there was actually square dancing. I don't know, you know, those people were there doing whatever, but it was like
You mean on
nobody
the-
knew what was
on
going
the
on.
dry hockey and basketball,
Yes,
right?
yes, and no
Yeah.
one knew what was going on. but
And
there was
actually,
so
the
much.
technical definition of a hoedown is you got to have some square dancing.
Correct. And there
But you're right, it
again-
was not very visible up on the court
No,
there.
so, you know, but there is a lot, okay, to do with it. But
No, I agree.
also with the advertising, Lou Scally wasn't there this year. But Lou Scally said, I really don't know what's going on. Okay, so, and he's one that has been a permanent fixture from the time that it has started. And he also does a lot to help the city as far as emceeing
Promoting
and all.
it.
So we need to look very
I thought it was a great
much
event, I
into
agree.
this. But it was. And of
ton
course,
of
the
people there.
kids
Perfect weather.
from down and around our area. And we also have got 3 Neighborhoods First group that are this way across the tracks that are in this area. But I think the biggest thing for me is that because of the fairgrounds being the fairgrounds as the fair for years and years and years, and then being able to come back with an event shows that, you know, we really do have something that is special
It's
there.
nice to see the petting zoo there this year
Yeah.
too, that was cool.
Yeah, so, but I would like to have, if you could, Valerie, the list of events that we do have, that we have had forever.
Okay.
And things that hopefully are not going to be eliminated. I've heard that,
Well, we're just going to be assessing everything.
okay,
you know,
well,
cost
the
of everything.
tree lighting at City Park, and I needed to bring that one up specifically because it was always our Crime Watch and our Neighborhoods First group for the last 15 years that had done the hot chocolate, and then we got in also with the cookie making.
Okay.
So, again, there has been the petting zoo that now, what I'm hearing, and I don't know if it's fact, so you can check on that, but the petting zoo was always there at that building as well, because we have got a lot of kids that come through.
You're talking about for
You're
the
talking
tree
about for
lighting?
another-
For the
petting
tree
zoo,
lighting.
the night
Over
of
by the
tree
Hager
lighting?
House.
Okay.
Yep, yep. So I just don't want things eliminated. I don't feel that it's that much money to be able to have this stuff. And again, it's all about going out and working with sponsors and being able for them to come in and pull together what they can pull together. So, but we are doing it one more time, because I don't want to leave Junior in a lurch, because he called me and said, Penny, are you going to do it? I said, you've got 3 women with 3 bad knees, okay? So it's a matter of, we've got to get some other ones in there to help do
What were
the
you talking
serving.
about? For that?
For the
what?
hot chocolate.
For the hot chocolate
Mhm.
and the, yeah, and I will reach out, because
They're in the
probably.
museum next to the Hager House. They
Oh,
set up
okay.
Yeah,
a little
it's
serving
it's the-
station.
mhm, Yeah.
Okay.
Kids that run out.
What, you can bring them. The little ones would probably help a lot. But anyway, that is still a go this year then,
Good.
so, yeah.
Anything else?
Oh, that's all.
Mr. Alshire?
Yeah, I was at the event at the fairgrounds as well over the weekend. My wife will tell you I can't resist a good yard sale, so. But one of the folks at the yard sale, and it's interesting, I always find that folks at yard sales, once they sort of see and say, hey, I know you're this person, they are never shy about sharing their opinions on certain issues. So there was some ladies there that had a couple booths, and were concerned with restroom facilities. So just for future years, the restroom facilities are a bit far away
Okay.
from the yard sale area.
Really? The restrooms in the back of the grandstand, were they open?
I don't know if they were open.
Because, I mean, that's right there.
Well, it's there, but again, it's one of those, it's the
Speaking of,
communication.
Bad knees, going
Yeah.
up and down that hill for.
No, I'm saying
for
there,
5
there are
hours.
bathrooms in the back of,
That grand,
but not
of the
down the
grandstand.
no, they're right off the parking lot.
It's off the parking lot, but it still is not known. There was a question asked about
Yeah.
potties.
I was gonna say Portage will have.
Yeah,
the-
okay, and the only ones that has been down where the Hoedown is at has been the restrooms that where the
right.
pavilions are at, but there had been handicapped potties, and they were not there. Again, they need to go in and they need to look at the files as what was and what was ordered, and that way you would know.
Other than that, I definitely agree that it's probably the right venue. I just, size-wise and logistics-wise, it does 2 things. It has much more adequate parking for that type of setup and open space for that setup. And,
Well, not only that, but it's very walkable for
It's
the.
walkable.
The whole, that whole
It
end
is
of the city.
walkable, yeah.
And the other thing is, there are a number of sports teams playing that, maybe on an average day, if there's nothing going on there, and I'm sure that with the YMCA League, that there's a good number of kids that don't live in the city participating in those sports, that the parents would say, okay, pack it up, time to head out of town, you know what I mean? Come into play,
Yeah.
and then leave right when you're done. And I noticed a good number of them trickle over, towards the end of their soccer matches, and saw that
Check
Pal
out the
was,
action.
selling
Yeah.
hot dogs and things. So I think it presents a good opportunity to
It's good
sell the city a
partnership
little
with,
bit.
But it's a good partnership with PAL, but what PAL didn't do
well, PAL
is
and the
that.
free clinic, I think, does the
Yeah,
scarecrows too.
they had their lines, and the lines were really long. They didn't move the food quickly enough. And it's a matter of, they need to go to their board and say, okay, we need a little bit more help, because,
Yeah.
that's money for
For
them.
them.
And it's also, when kids are there, the kids are gonna want.
The only downside of the whole day was I made the mistake of parking up in that grass at the top of the hill where the yard sale venue was, because nobody's sort of directing how folks park on that grass. And so anybody that was in the middle, if you will, that parked there for the yard sale event, there wasn't a way to get out at the end, because everybody was
Trapped.
parked along the top. You know what I mean? The whole top was parked in, and me and this guy in this truck were just doing circles, trying to figure out how to get out. And then once we did get out, all the way down towards the BMX track, everybody parked on the left side coming in. You literally had to wait, you know what I mean? And you had the 1 o'clock crowd coming in for the Hoedown, and the 1 o'clock crowd leaving from the yard sale venue. And when you narrow
When the
that
yard sale
top-
technically ended at 2, so
yeah,
there
when
was
you
some.
narrow
Yeah,
that
some
top
overlap,
down to
yeah.
1 lane because of parking, folks like to go to events where it is convenient access,
Yeah.
and it's,
That's where you need the auxiliary.
But even if you had-
The
or even-
auxiliary needs to be.
Or even
brought
Boy
in.
Scouts. The Boy Scouts at the Peach Festival do the park,
Yeah.
direct
Now, is
people
that
where to park.
something that was better in the past? That's.
I don't know.
It's never, I don't think it
Yeah.
was an issue, because I don't know if we've had that where the
I've
yard
always
sale
thought
and
it was
the
more
parking
hoedown
attendants.
coincided.
Yeah, they
in the
did.
past?
Oh, did
They've
they?
always been.
I've always parked
Yeah.
in the parking lot before, but we
Oh,
parked up
okay.
there.
The last
Okay.
3 years, though, the weather has been kind of cruddy. So this was
Last-
the first
this
year
was
that
a
like it's been
beautiful
perfect
weekend.
weather and you had
Perfect.
all
Yeah.
people there. Yeah.
But, the auxiliary police would be good at that, and that's just worth
Yeah,
putting
yeah.
that one down.
Even just marking off a lane to get in and out of that grass
Yeah.
area.
Yeah.
You know
But
what I
it's
mean? To
still,
say-
whether people will, because when you go to picnics, when you go to the Democratic picnics, Republican picnics, you always got somebody guiding you in so that
Yeah.
you've got the ability to get out. So,
Sure.
Kind of
Yeah.
keep it organized,
That's
yeah.
a good suggestion.
yeah.
Anything else?
No.
Mr. Munson?
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor, last meeting, we were talking about committees to which we belong, and I mentioned that I would talk this week about the Housing Authority. I serve on the Housing Authority as an ex officio board member at the request of the mayor, and I would note that Penny comes to almost all the meetings that we have to talk and to be a part of the conversation too. But neither of us have a vote.
No.
When the executive meetings start, we leave. There are a number of things that are happening there that I would like to bring up for the mayor and council to know. One is that there's still negotiations going on between the trail easement that the city and the Housing Authority have been involved in for some time. I think it's accurate to say that the negotiations are pretty close to coming up with an agreement, a final agreement, but there is still one issue, and that's keeping us apart, and that issue is the fact that the Housing Authority Board has requested a 3-foot decorative fence or planting along the path as it crosses over their property. There's already a fence there. It's a regular fence that you would expect to see most any place. It separates the, I guess it's the bar property, the property to the west from the Housing Authority. And I believe that in fact, I know that the city engineer would prefer not to have a second fence because of the cost involved and the cost of maintaining the plantings. So there's still a conversation going on between the Housing Authority and the city engineer regarding that particular issue. But almost all the other issues have been reached an accord on most everyone except this one, and there continue to be talks about this one. Secondly, the authority submitted a multi-phase RAD application, that's called Rental Assistance Demonstration Application, to provide money for an upgrade of Nolan Village, and that RAD application was submitted on September the 1st. The authority has researched other funding options, and there are no other funding sources to do such a major development without the use of RAD. Now, I am not familiar enough with RAD to tell you what is included in RAD. There was no discussion of that at the meeting last time. But the application has been submitted, and I'm sure that we will be hearing more about that, and I assume that they will be coming in front of the mayor and city council at some point to discuss this with us. The summer youth programs at the various Housing Authority communities have ended, and monthly resident meetings for the communities have already begun. I want to make that point. They have summer youth programs at the various Housing Authority communities, and when the programs can't run because of the weather, then the housing communities sit down and talk about the issues. The first meeting for the Nolan Village residents was on Wednesday, October the 7th, and it was regarding the redevelopment that I just mentioned, the RAD submission. This is a pretty interesting one. I think the board, this board and the mayor will find this pretty interesting. The authority advised the board that Penny and I sit on, that the funding provided by HUD, as a federal HUD, for the authority to administer the Section 8 program continues to decrease. It was stated that as part of the 2014 appropriations approved by Congress, housing authorities were given the option to implement from annual to biannual inspections for Section 8. The Housing Authority Board was not happy about this reduction in inspections. So the board asked that we be presented with a further history of the program and other options to consider other than reducing the inspections. I think everybody on the board is in complete agreement that as many inspections as we can possibly have are really important.
Especially for that program.
Yes, for that program. This is a little bit of interest. There's a local doctor who is looking for office space at Elgin Station, the Elgin Station Community Building, to lease to serve the residents and surrounding community. One doctor has expressed an interest, and the authority has provided a lease for space for that doctor's review. Now, here's something that's very complimentary of the city. The city advised the authority that the franchise agreement that the city holds with Antietam Cable that provides basic internet service at no charge to multiple locations in several authority communities were part of the predetermined locations. This is a savings of $3,068 to the authority, and the authority would like to thank the city. So, of course, that's greatly appreciated. And finally, the mayor has suggested that the authority take part in a housing summit. A brief discussion about that was held, and the authority would assist if the idea is presented. So
Thank you.
that's all I have on this report. I'll be bringing the mayor and council up to date in a couple more weeks. We meet on the 15th.
Right, they had a meeting this week.
Yeah.
Mr. Brubaker.
Is the RADA or NADA or whatever? it is?
RAD, yeah.
Is it still the concept where they build on an adjacent track and use that for relocation while they redevelop the original site?
Yes.
It's that sort of phase?
Joanne Ballingy actually met with me, gosh, I want to say it was probably a month or so ago about that very thing. She brought in some information about that. And that's when I brought up this idea of a housing summit, because I think the Housing Authority does a really good job of what they do, but they sort of get lumped, they get assigned blame for, you know, other failing communities in our various neighborhoods. And so, you know, obviously they're an important player when it comes to housing low-income people. And I think having Joanne on a sort of a steering committee to bring this housing summit to fruition she would be an important player. But yes, she provided me some more information about that RAD application. I don't have any of the information at the top of my head, but I can certainly share with you what I have. It's probably very similar to what Don has.
I
But
think it also involves private partnerships that wasn't before, right?
well, they would still have a private developer they'd work with. Was that Delaware Valley?
Yeah, but there's something that has
Company or
changed.
something.
There's
They got
something-
another one, yeah.
Yeah, there
That's
was
in
some-
here, but I didn't go
No,
into
but there's something that
into
has
that.
changed, because, and that's the first
Yeah, it
time
might
that
be
I
a
ever
different
heard of
developer,
it.
but there would be a private developer involved.
Right, and that wasn't before when the projects
Mm-hmm.
were, because the money is so tight and for what they need to get, that's why they were looking at this.
Well, I think one of the real big issues comes back to HUD
Yeah.
and their funding and their rules about, you know, if you have X amount of units that are subsidized, you can't reduce that number of units, but we need guidance and clarity on, you know, deconcentration. It seems to me that the goal is to deconcentrate poverty, and it seems like all the policies and rules that HUD has doesn't do anything to help us get there. And I think that's one of the frustrating and challenging parts of creating the kind of change we want to see, is we're up against this federal behemoth that has all these rules and regulations and continues to decrease funding for these kinds of things, which makes it even more challenging, not only for the Housing Authority, but for all of us in city government to create the change we're trying to create. So,
Well, I think it's important to note, when you look at the original application and the decision from HUD a year and a half ago on the denial of that application, it was based primarily on the fact that the neighborhood as defined lost points, so to speak, in the application process, because the neighborhood that was defined is or did not meet the socioeconomic thresholds. In other words, it was slightly above, the threshold of necessity. I don't think that's a bad thing. And I think any conversation we're going to have about doubling the size of Nolan Village is exactly that type of conversation that I talk about of balance, because it cannot be looked at in a vacuum. I walk that area probably every night of the week, almost every night of the week. And there is a significant mix of homeowners and renters and subsidized housing in that area, and I think that we have to take it in a much broader perspective before we go signing on to discussions of support that will permanently change the dynamic of that larger neighborhood.
Well, certainly we would have those discussions if we were ever to get to that kind of decision-making point. And the other
Because
thing
losing
too is-
homeowners should not be anywhere within the realm of goals that we have.
Certainly.
Well, I think it's safe to say that Joanne has been rather cooperative in keeping in touch with Hagerstown. Joanne Ballinger,
She has indeed.
yeah. And we're fortunate in that.
I agree. Well, many of the things I was going to mention have been mentioned, the Hoedown, the neighborhood's first picnic. I wanted to make everybody aware that next week we're going to talk about agency contributions according to the policy that we have, that we talk about agency contributions for next year's budget, starting
One of the first budget,
this month.
early budget discussions, yes.
Right. Also, Park Circle is going to be closing for construction. Just want to make sure everybody knows that weather permitting, beginning at 7 a.m. on Wednesday, October 14th, work crews from Craig Paving will be milling and repaving the streets to comprise Park Circle. Work is being completed as part of the plan to convert the existing rotary traffic pattern at the circle to a roundabout traffic pattern. And of course, work has been going on there for a while now, but they're actually going to shut the streets down and do the milling and paving and painting and all that good stuff. So I want to make sure everybody's aware of that. I think they're planning on having it closed down the 14th and 15th for 2 days, so just, they can come in from the south entrance. The south entrance of the vet will be available to them.
Okay.
The other thing was, I wanted to make sure people knew that the final wind down is this Friday. It's Freaky Friday here in downtown Hagerstown, so get your freak on and I guess put a costume on and enjoy the festivities. Hopefully the weather will be good for that. Also, I'm excited, on Thursday, I'll be taking leave from my school work to meet the Chancellor of the University System of Maryland. He's making a visit to Hagerstown, meeting with the Board of Advisors, which I serve on. Usually Dawn attends these meetings in my place because I have to go to school, but I was able to arrange to go to this one. And I just have to say, the USMH has record enrollment. They're continuing on planning to grow, and I think, the city as a partner is right there with them and trying to encourage that growth. And our goal is to really get across to the Chancellor how important that institution is, not just for the city of Hagerstown, but for the county and really the whole region. It's huge economic development driver, not only for downtown Hagerstown, but for workforce development and trying to attract kind of jobs we want to have here in Hagerstown. So I think that's a really good thing. And then on Friday, we will be hosting the Secretary of the Maryland Department of Housing and Community Development. He is coming to tour to look at projects that we've utilized community legacy money for We have a stakeholder meeting and lunch planned with him, and then, of course, a tour of downtown. So looking forward to meeting him and showing him all the great things we're doing here in Hagerstown with all that state money.
That we need more of.
And that definitely need more
I'll
of.
make sure I'm there saying, and we need more of it.
That's right. We can't ever have enough.
And I'll put on my happy face.
There you go. I want to thank all the employees who participated in the United Way Day of Caring. I thought that was it's always a good thing for the city to do. I have money deducted from my paycheck every week to contribute to the campaign that the city runs. I don't think it's too late. I think Danny will still take contributions from city employees if they want to do that. So I would encourage everyone to do that and get involved and be a part of not just the Day of Caring, but the Year of Caring through your contributions. And finally, wanted to mention that Trick or Treat, for all those who haven't got the memo yet, is on Friday, October 30th. And of course, our Mummers Parade, hopefully it won't snow. It will be held on Saturday, the 31st.
You taking all your babies
And what time,
in the parade
No,
to
Mary,
ride?
do you know what time we have to be
not a parade
at
rider.
the antique fire engine?
I know.
5:30 at the old Sheets, right? It's right there at Fairgrounds in Potomac. And also, just want to remind folks that of our meeting schedule next week, we have a 3 o'clock executive session scheduled, a 4 o'clock work session, and then our 7 o'clock regular session. Anything else for the good of the cause?
And who's providing food?
Adonna's Deli will be open if you don't want to leave and come back. She said she'll make us some sandwiches for the break. So we haven't had that in a while, so that'll be nice. Or you can just go home and come back. All right, well, we've done a good job here. We've finished before schedule, so thank everyone, and we'll be adjourned.